Python is an interpreted language, which means that the code, our instructions, are being translated to machine code on the fly, on demand, while the code is being executed instead of being compiled into binaries before, like for compiled languages. Now, this has a bunch of benefits, but it also has some downsides. One of them being the performance, the other one being something I would like to call code privacy. So unless I'm working on just a backend or an API where the code is on the server, if I want you to run my Python application, you basically have to get the source code. If I develop a, I don't know, Tkinter GUI or PyQt6 GUI interface in an application, I basically deliver the source code to you and you run it. That is the default way or the basic way it would work with Python. Now, this is not the only option because we do have Python compilers, so to say. And I have covered some of them on my channel already, PyInstaller and also some alternatives. But today I want to cover another Python compiler, which I think is superior to all of them, called Nuitka. I hope this is pronounced correctly. It's a little bit weird, the name. But essentially, this is a very professional compiler for Python, which results in either a single binary file or a binary file, an executable file, with a bunch of dependencies shipped as well. So you basically get something that is unreadable and can be run standalone on your operating system. This works for Windows, this works for Mac, this works for Linux, and you can ship your Python applications as binary or executable files. And also, compared to PyInstaller, you don't have to end up with these huge files. You have a reasonable size. So this is what we're going to cover today. Let us get right into it. Alright, so we're going to cover Nuitka, the Python compiler, in this video today. And since we're going to cover a lot, I want to briefly outline or structure the video. What we're going to do first is we're going to install Nuitka on Linux. I'm also going to show you how to do that on Windows. I do have a virtual machine that I'm going to run here to show you the process, because on Windows we get executables, so .exe files. On Linux we get binaries. I'm going to show you both. We're going to start with a very simple example of just taking a Hello World program and compiling it to a binary. Then we're going to move on to a Tkinter graphical user interface application, a simple notepad, and then we're going to also do the same thing with PyQt6 or with PySide6. So we're going to have the same program but with a package that is not part of the standard library of Python or of core Python, and we're going to get all of these running on Linux and on Windows as standalone binaries and executables. Now, in case you want to learn about more theoretical details when it comes to Nuitka, you can go to nuitka.net. Here you can see the basic philosophy, you can see the compatibility, you can see how it works. In a nutshell, what it does is it takes Python modules and translates them to C, then C is compiled to machine code. And for this, what we need is we need to have a C compiler on our system. On Linux and Mac, that's GCC, and on Windows, we're going to use Cygwin. I'm going to show you how to do that as well later on in the video, but basically, you just need a C compiler, and then all we need to do is we need to install it with pip. So we're going to go to our working directory, and here now I'm going to say pip or pip3 install Nuitka. This installs the compiler, and all we need to do now is we need a Python file. So let's go and do something simple, main py. Let's do a function hello. This function is going to print hello world. Very simple. And then I'm going to have a section if name is equal to main. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call hello. That's it. That's my program. I would like to compile this into a binary. What do? I say python3-m Nuitka and then main.py. This is already going to automatically turn this into a binary. Now, we can add more flags to this. So first of all, you can see here I have main.build, which is a directory. So we can go into that and look at it if we want to. We can see some header files and .o files and .c files and all that. But the interesting thing here is the main.bin. So let's clear the screen again and let's run main.bin. As you can see, it does, or it prints hello world. If I take a look at it, so if I open it with an editor here, main.bin, we're going to see it's just binary, so not readable. Of course, the string hello world is going to be somewhere in here, but this is essentially a binary file. And what we can do also is we can export this as a standalone file. So we have two flags here. One is standalone and the other one is one file. Now one file implies standalone. Standalone basically means we're going to get everything that is somehow needed by this binary. We're going to also ship it in a folder, in an additional folder. So we don't need any Python installation. We don't need any dependencies on the system. I mean, we can need dependencies, but we don't need any of the imports, any of the Python packages to be present on the system because we can just ship them with the binary. And if we use the flag one file, we're also going to ship everything into a single file. So the idea is if I say, back to the command here, if I say python3-m nuitka main.py, I can say -- standalone. And that is going to give me the binary and also a directory containing all the stuff that I need to be able to run this. And I can run this then on a system that doesn't have any of the dependencies, it doesn't have any of that already installed. So you can see I have here main.dist. This is what I would also ship to the customer or client. So this is also what is shipped then finally with the application. And we also have our main.bin. So run it, main.bin, hello world. Now I think the command is du-h to see how large the file is. Let's see, we have 5.8 megabytes in this case. So that's not a lot, but now let's see what happens if we say, where's the command here? Not standalone, but one file. What this is going to do is it's still going to use standalone, so it's still going to generate the dist folder, but we're only needing the binary file. So we can remove everything else and we can just ship the bin file. So I can say rm-r main.build. So I can do the same thing here with the dist, and I can do the same thing with the one file build. And now, of course, on my system, it's going to work. But the binary is now a one file binary, which means I can ship it to any Linux system and it should be able to run because everything that it needs is in the binary itself. Now let's see what the size says, because usually the binary is compressed, so maybe it's even smaller than before. 3.3 megabytes. So that's the basic idea here. Now, of course, this is just a hello world, so let's move on to something more complex. And once we're done with the examples, we're going to also do the same thing on Windows. Let's go ahead and write a basic Tkinter GUI. Now, I'm not going to code it here. I'm not going to spend the time coding it here. I'm just going to copy paste it here from my prepared code because this is not a Tkinter tutorial. But let's call it editor.py. The code is quite straightforward. We have import Tkinter, import file dialog from Tkinter. Then we have a title notepad. We have a basic text area. We have the function for opening and saving a file, and then we just have open, save, exit file from a menu, and that's basically it. A very, very simple editor. I can run it here, editor.py. Now, of course, I have a tiling window manager, so this is actually, I have to somehow get this into floating mode. This is what it looks like. You know, I can type some stuff here. I can then save and open. Yeah, that's basically the application. But of course, if I now develop this is now a complex application, I want to ship it to the user, maybe I want to charge money for it or something, then of course you don't want to just give them the source code. And because of that, we can compile it now. So I can say here python3-m nuitka, and I can say editor.py. Let's go ahead and say again, one file. So let's make it a single file. And now we're going to need an additional command here, or an additional flag, because this uses a dependency that is supported by Nuitka. This is, by the way, not always the case. Not everything is supported by Nuitka. Some of the things are not supported, which means that some of the programs you have are not going to be compilable easily with Nuitka because you just don't have the respective plugin. So what we need to do now, since we're using Tkinter, is we need to say -- enable -plugin is equal to, and then in quotations here, in single quotations, I think, tk-inter. So this is going to allow us to use tkinter and to ship it as well. So I'm going to just run this here, and this is going to compile to a binary, to a single file that uses tkinter, and then we have the editor executable. Now let's see if I can find, I think I have here a link. Let me open that in the browser. Here we have, I will put this in the description down below. In the GitHub, we have the standard plugins documentation.rst file. And basically you see what kind of stuff is supported here. We have the one that we used right now. Where is it? Tkinter. We have TensorFlow. We have Torch. We have PySide 6, which we're also going to use now. We have NumPy, which is required also for Pandas, Matplotlib, and so on. We have a bunch of other stuff, but if your dependency is not listed here, maybe you will have some problems. So important stuff is already listed here, but not everything. So keep that in mind when you're using this compiler, but you can just try and see if it works. Right now, let's go and remove the editor.build directory again, the editor.dist directory, and the editor.onefile_build. And now I can just say editor.bin, and this opens the same application as before. It's a binary, but it has the same application. It has the same functionality as you can see here. And it worked because we used the plugin. Now I'm going to do the same thing now with PySide 6. Of course, for that, you need to install PySide 6. So what we're going to do is I'm going to copy paste again. I'm going to open up a file editor_qt6.py. I'm going to paste this here. Logic is the same. We just have different dependencies. We have PySide 6. We have the widgets, the GUI. We have the main window. Again, title, action for the menu itself, opening and saving a file. That's basically it, just a different syntax. And if, of course, you want to use this, you have to say pip or pip3 install PySide 6, like this. And I think if I don't forget it, I'm also going to provide the code in my GitHub, so you can just copy it and try it yourself. But basically, if I run this now, we have a pretty similar program. Looks slightly different, but essentially it's this notepad kind of thing, editor kind of thing. So we can also compile that. For this, we need, again, the plugin that we talked about, the PySide 6 plugin, but we also want to use Qt plugins because that's now one layer deeper. We can not only use Qt, we can also use plugins for Qt. So this requires an additional tag. So the command would look like this, Python 3, or maybe let's briefly clear this so my camera is not blocking, Python 3-m, and then Nuitka, and then editor_qt6py, -- onefile, -- enable -plugin is equal to PySide 6, and then -- include -qt -plugins, and then here I would pass sensible, which is like a default set of plugins, and then also platform or platforms, which also has some additional packages here. Now you can see a full list of that by going to your directory. How do you find out what kind of plugins are available? You basically open up your terminal, you locate the package, or you locate the directory of your PySide 6 package. How do you do that? You say pip or pip3 show, and then the package name, PySide 6. This is going to give you the directory here, location. It's going to tell you where your package is. You can go to that directory, so home, neural 9, local, lib, Python 3, or Python 3.10, site packages. Then you go here to PySide 6. And in here now, you want to go to Qt. So now I'm still blocking this here, Qt, and then you want to go to plugins. And here you have now all the plugins that you can use. These are the names that you can use here when specifying the flag. So when you say include Qt plugins, sensible is like a special keyword for a sensible default set. But besides that, like platforms or anything else here can be used from this. So you can also say sensors, you can say SQL drivers, and so on. Now you can see it takes quite some time to compile all of that, but once it's done, you have this binary. Again, we can remove everything, so I can say remove -r editor _qt6 build dist one file, and then editor qt6.bin. There you go. Same executable as before. And that's basically the idea. I can take that now to a different system and run it without having any of this pip and Python setup installed. So let's see if what I'm saying is correct. I now have a VirtualBox instance here. This is Lubuntu. I'm not even using an installed version. This is just a try version. So of course, if I open up a terminal here, I'm going to be able to use Python because Python comes installed by default with most Linux systems. So if I type Python 3, I'm going to have Python 3.12 installed here, but I don't have PySide 6 or anything. So that shouldn't work. Now what I'm going to do is I have a shared directory. So I basically went into VirtualBox here for the settings. I set, where is it, shared folders, and I pointed to my current directory. Now I just have to mount it manually, and then we can use the files. So this is of course not something you have to do if you don't want to. You can also just get it to a different computer or something if you have one. But I'm going to just showcase that this works here. What we're going to do is we're going to say sudo mount -t vbox sf Nuitka, and then we're going to say mount Nuitka. Actually, I think I need to create the directory first of all. So mkdir sudo mkdir and then mnt Nuitka, and then run the command again. Oh, sorry, the name is not Nuitka, obviously, because I called my directory current. So let's do it like this. There you go. And now we can go to this directory here, and in my VirtualBox I can see now all the files. So let's give it a try and just try to execute the Python files. So let's start with a simple editor qt6py. This shouldn't work because we don't have PySide 6. You can see no module named PySide 6, so the dependencies are missing here. But let's see if I can still just run the editor qt6 binary. Now there is going to be a problem, but the problem is not that I don't have the Python package installed. The problem is that, of course, we can ship everything that's related to Python here, but we cannot just ship stuff that is a system dependency. This happens oftentimes when you install some application. For example, right now here, this package here is missing. This is not a package that is related to Python. This is just a system dependency. So we need to install this, otherwise a dependency is missing. So I'm going to say sudo apt install and this package. That is a necessary dependency, but besides that, we can just run the binary. So let's try again. The Python file still doesn't work. The dependency is missing. But now if I run the editor binary, you can see I have the Notepad as a binary application on my system here. So this works perfectly. Same goes for the ordinary editor bin, obviously the Tkinter application. There you go, this works. Now let's give all of this a try on Windows. I have a VirtualBox instance here running Windows 10, and I also have my directory connected here, so we have all the files here as well. Of course, the bin files are useless for Windows because they're compiled for Linux. The Python files work. I already have a Python installation here, so if I run cmd, if I navigate to this directory, you can see I have all the files here, and I can say python main.py, and I'm able to run the hello world. I can also say editor .py. I did not miss these sounds, by the way. And I also have PySide 6 installed here, and the reason is because we have to compile the stuff here from scratch again. We cannot just use the files that we compiled on Linux. We have to do the compilation process ourselves, which means that we need to have all the dependencies. We can remove them later on, but we need them now, which means that I can also run now editor _qt6.py, and this also works. So I have already Python installed. I have the dependencies installed. So I did here pip install, and then what was it, PySide 6. This is already installed, and I also installed Nuitka here as well. So same process is on Linux. You just say pip install Nuitka, pip install PySide 6 if you want to try the example. And the cool thing here is I actually said we're going to use cygwin. This is not necessary because what Nuitka does on Windows is it automatically installs the compiler if you don't have it. So if you run Nuitka, if you say Python, by the way, maybe I can increase the font size here a bit. That's better. Now if I say python-m Nuitka and let's say main.py, what happens here is, and let's also go with one file, what happens is it's going to ask me if I don't have this. If I run it for the first time, it's going to ask me if I want to install the compiler, the GCC compiler, and you just have to say yes, and it's going to install the compiler. You don't need to set up anything manually with Cygwin or so on. It's going to do that automatically for you. And the reason you need to compile this here on Windows again is because you need an exe file, an executable file, and you cannot do that on Linux. All right, there you go. It took some time, but now we have the main.exe file. We can also go back into our file explorer here and refresh, I guess. And now we can see the main.exe file, and we can also see what was built here, or what was shipped in the dist directory. We can see we have Python 3.12.dll, so we basically have Python shipped with our application here if we don't have it as a single executable, and our single executable is 3.8 megabytes. Now, of course, if I double click it, it's not gonna do much. It's going to show hello world briefly and disappear. If I run it in the command line here, main.exe, it's going to show hello world, so that works. But the interesting part is now doing that with the Tkinter application and with the PyQt6 or with the PySide 6 application. And for that, we're going to do the same as before, python-m Nuitka. We're going to say editor. Let's go right away with the qt6.py. We're going to say enable, or actually, first of all, one file, then enable plugin is equal to PySide 6. We're going to say include qt plugins. I think it was plural, right? Yeah. Equal to sensible platforms. And now we need one more tag for Windows. Now we don't need it. We can run it also without. But what's going to happen if you don't add this tag is the console is going to open every time behind the scenes. So you can say now --Windows -console -mode is equal to disable. This is going to prevent the console from opening. So running that should result in us getting an executable file that has our notepad as an executable, as a GUI interface. There you go, the executable was created. So let's refresh again. And we can also take a look at the dist directory again, and you can see we have a bunch of DLLs here. We have Python again, we have Qt6 core, Qt6 GUI, and so on. All the dependencies here shipped, and we have the executable in here as well. So that would be the application if you don't ship it as a one file, but as standalone. So that is standalone in terms of everything you need is in here. You have PySide 6 here as well as a separate thing. I think this is because of the license, I'm not sure. But you basically have everything you need to run this program in this directory, but you can also have it just as a standalone file, 21 megabytes. And if I double click it now, you should see that a notepad opens up. I can resize it, I can type some stuff, I can save to my desktop, for example, here. There you go. Very simple, very easy to work with. And now we're going to do the test. We're going to uninstall Python. So I'm going to go to my control panel here. I'm going to remove Python from the system to see if I still can run the executable. So I'm going to remove everything that I need here because I'm going to rely on a system not having anything and my application still working. So uninstalling absolutely everything and also getting rid of, or actually I don't have to get rid of anything here. We're going to get rid of these build directories here, but essentially that is not really relevant here. All right, so Python is now gone from our system. We don't have it here anymore. We can also make the test. We can try to run CMD. We can go again to the Z system here and or drive here and then say Python main.py, for example. Now it doesn't do anything. I can say Python editor _qt.py or qt6.py. It does nothing, it doesn't work. But main.exe should still work. I still should get hello world once the check here is completed because it essentially says I don't trust this application, doesn't really matter. But now Python does not exist on my system anymore. It doesn't work. So if I double click this, I can still run the application. I still have this independent executable file, and I should also have less of a startup time if I use the full directory here. So if I don't want to have this as a one file, if I am also okay with having this as this full package here, I can even run this faster. So double clicking and opening it, as you can see, almost immediately. Whereas here it takes more time because it's a standalone, everything is in one executable, so that is maybe not the optimal approach unless you really need to have it in a single file. If you can afford to have these dependencies all in a directory, so if you want to install this and then just have the executable, and maybe you want to have a shortcut here to your editor like this, then you can do that easily also just with a standalone flag. So yeah, this is how you can compile Python applications to executables, to binaries using Nuitka. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of videos you're also interested in, maybe some performance optimization, maybe other compilers, maybe different Python versions, or something completely different. I always try to read the comments and to see what you guys are most interested in. And of course, also don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you much for watching, see you in the next video, and bye.